Hello and welcome to Hearing Your Future, the Coding Your Future podcast. My name is Duncan, I'm your host and I'm on a mission to help you design, build, test and code your future in computing. In this podcast we'll talk to current and former students of computer science, find out more about their journey from student to professional. What's their story? How are they coding their future? What obstacles have they faced and how did they overcome them? Finally, we ask our guests what advice they'd offer their former selves and fellow students and where are they headed next. My guest today is Stefania Chaplin. She graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science with Business and Management in 2013 and is currently a Solutions Architect at GitLab.com.
Ready to start.
Right, okay, good. So welcome, Stefania. Thank you for coming on Hearing Your Future. So I've already said your name, but could you introduce yourself and say who you are and where you come from?
Sure, thank you so much for having me, Duncan. So my name is Stefania Chaplin. I am a University of Manchester Computer Science graduate from the year 2013, and currently I am working as a Solutions Architect at GitLab, which is my main job, and then I also do a lot of professional speaking and workshop under my own brand, which is DevStefOps, which is a play on the word DevSecOps, because I'm Steph.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'm going to go a little bit back in time to a high school. So where does this interest in computing from? Can you remember what your first exposure to computing was as a high school or maybe even a primary school student?
It was probably primary school because it would have been about 2001 when the original Sims was there.
Right.
And I was playing that. And originally I had played PlayStation 1 Crash Bandicoot in 97, but in 2001 I was talking to an adult who worked in development and he was explaining to me that the way that a leaf moves has a mathematical equation and it's all based on computers. And if I liked video games, then I would like computers. So it really started there because actually in my school there was no computer science offering. We had IT, but that was like how to use Excel. So I got my interest when I was young and playing a lot of PlayStation, but it really got the knowledge at Manchester University.
Right. And you did, so for I guess that influenced what sort of A-levels you did? So you did...
I did further maths.
Right.
Yeah, maths, further maths, biology, chemistry, economics.
Right, okay.
No computer science offering. But there is now. I do talks with my school and there is about it's an all-girls school. There's 5 or 6 people doing computer science out of about 100, so...
And I suppose the kind of interesting thing in a single-sex school is that subjects aren't gendered in the way they are in co-educational schools where like physics is seen as being a boy's subject or computer science or whatever, which is complete nonsense. So you just choose based on what you're interested in, what you like, and what you
Yes,
do.
Exactly. But there are, in terms of the demand for the classes, there are some stereotypes in that English was very popular, so were a lot of the humanities, history of art, philosophy. They all had, 20, 30, sometimes 40 students, and further maths had 5. So I got to know all 5 fairly well.
How many in maths?
How many in maths? I think maths was probably a bit bigger, like maybe 20 to 30, but further maths, 5 of us.
And that was that 5, because I remember further maths at school was the thing that people started at the beginning and then slowly the numbers would dwindle over the 2 years.
We were consistent, all 5 for 2 years, but it's, you do 12 modules. Well, in my days we did 12 modules in 2 years versus 6 modules in 2 years, so double maths.
So that kind of being at school, when you're applying, you're doing your A-levels and you think, what made you think actually this is a subject, because obviously you're not studied at A-level, what made you think this is a subject I want to spend 3 or 4 years at university doing?
So I was quite fortunate in that I thought quite practically and strategically, and a lot of my peer group, I speak to them 5-10 years later and they're like, I'm really jealous you did computer science because when I picked my subjects, it was 2007, we'd had something like 15 years of uninterrupted growth and then all of a sudden financial recession, Lehman Brothers, the entire economy is in a meltdown, and I'm like, I'm going to uni now, so I'm going to skip most of this. But when I was in 2007, I thought, I can't write essays. So that was a lot of subjects off the list. And then I thought to myself, computers will be in the future no matter what. So if I do them, I will be very employable.
Right.
So it was literally more of a, I can do this.
Quite a practical decision.
Yeah, it was a really practical decision because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I couldn't write essays. So I was like, okay, I'll just do a subject which was actually really hard. But I'm very grateful because a lot of my peer group, I was talking to them when they're about 25 and they're like, damn, I wish I did computers instead of business because business is great, but actually everything is technical in computers now.
Yeah, good, okay. So you started in 2009? 2009, and you spent 4 years in Manchester. So we talk a little bit about that journey. How did you find being a student studying? How did it meet with your expectations?
Yeah, so I had applied to a couple of different universities and a lot of them accepted, which was good. And Manchester was my favourite. I'm glad I came here. And one of the deciding points was in the open days, they said, the tutors said, we will teach you even if you don't know anything.
Right.
I'd also applied to Cambridge, and that was not the same level of expectation. So I knew by coming to Manchester that, okay, at least they know that I've never done computing before, so I'll have that level. The expectation was slightly different when I came here because a lot of other people, there are a lot of foreign students who had studied it at A-level equivalent. A lot of people, even lower. You know, there were people whose dads worked at Google. So I was definitely in a minority, and what I found was there were some other people, but there was a bit of a drop off in first year. Of the people who hadn't studied computers and then changed to a business. So I was very glad that I managed to get a supportive network of friends and that we all had slightly different skill sets. So it was a really collaborative environment in order to get where we needed to be with our grades. And
you did you look at doing internships and a placement while you were an undergraduate student?
So I did look at it a bit. I had a lot of stuff going on with my mental health in first and second year. So originally I was on the placement year, but then I didn't quite make the grades. So then I just did an ordinary course. Right. So just studying. And then I'd done a little bit of work experience kind of when I was at school, but it wasn't computers related.
Right, okay. So that takes us through to, so you've done, let's say you've done 2 years of this, so you've done 2 years of computer science, you're coming into your final year in computer science. What was your final year project on? So I was, the mentality, I was like, I can do this, 1 year left, okay. I was really determined to finish, because actually at that point I was like, do I just change subject? But no, I was committed to completing. So what I chose to do was a slightly, a more of a hybrid topic. Mm-hmm. So it was actually my supervisor was in the School of, I think, Biology, right, because my topic was deterministic and probabilistic cellular automata. Right, okay.
So my final year project, I actually created a simulation, so I think it worked with my video game self, of where I had blue was the sea, and then I had fish, and the fish could move and breed, and then I had sharks, and they could eat the fish, and also move and breed, and starve. And then that's a known thing, and then my project was to add a third level predator, so a super shark. Right. And then what was quite interesting with the project, which maps up to real world, is that to get the populations to oscillate so that we could actually have all three on the simulation, I had to have 40% fish, right, and like a fraction of a percent of super shark. Right. Because actually when if you think about, the relationship of, I don't know, caterpillars to rabbits to hawks, you're going to have a lot of caterpillars to sustain one hawk. So actually a lot of what I had in my project lined up with real life, which was really cool. Right. So is this based on, is it like Game of Life, or is it do you know what the model was underneath it? It was cellular automata. It was basically, if you have a grid, each cell they can do specific patterns. Right. So in nature you get a lot of like the swirls, Fibonacci. Yeah. And so mine was prey and predator. The next level after that is kind of prey predator, which is what it was modeled on. Okay, so I was looking at like rabbits and wolves in the 1800s and how their populations, it's like, oh, lots of rabbits, more wolves, then they eat the rabbits go down, then the wolves starve, and then they can less wolves, more rabbits, and then it continues. So you come to the end of a degree. Yes. You've survived. You've tackled some adversity during your degree, which is quite common. I think people have different struggles to get through. Mm-hmm. What was your path from then until now? So what was your first thought on graduating? What did you start with? So I was really happy because I got a 2-1, which is kind of, I say what you need, but it was great to be in that situation. But I probably hadn't sought it out, but I hadn't really received the careers advice in that I thought the only job I could do was be a developer. I thought, oh, I have a computer science degree, I'm going to code. And because I hadn't done great in my second year C, I didn't really want to be a developer. So in some ways, I kind of turned my back a little bit to computer science. When I was at university, I got a job in the Trafford Centre in Selfridges doing makeup. So for a while after uni, I was a makeup artist, and I got to travel a bit and do like weddings and fashion shoots and photo shoots and stuff like that. And then I was also being part-time fitness instructor, which was also my uni job, and then I did that after. And then after a while, I got a real job. Well, I say a real job, a desk job, but that was actually working in sales. So that was like, calling people, you've attended this event, would you like a meeting? Then after that, I worked in recruitment, and that actually taught you a lot about people. And actually, even if you work in tech, no matter what your job is, it's really useful to understand people, people and culture and how to interact. And then the Brexit vote happened, so that was 2017, and I was like, oh my god, I'm a girl that can code, I'm a unicorn. So I retrained, and then I got a job as a Python developer. It was actually in Poland. And so I moved there, my salary decimated. I think I was on and that was good for there, but I was on 600 euros a month. So for full time, which there was fine because my rent was only 100 a month. But I came back to London once a month, and I'd blow my month's salary just seeing friends.
Just paying a tube.
Yeah, exactly. Just paying for the Wizz Air. And then after that, I came to London, and then I got a job as a solutions architect in cybersecurity, which is kind of where I've stayed in different companies, but for the last 6-7 years, because it works for me, the combination of technology and client facing, and problem solving every day is different, listening to customers, what are their problems, what's the new tech. So lot of variation.
And actually, I think that skill set's quite hard to find, right? You say, you're a girl that codes, and that's great, but actually that's a valuable skill, whatever your gender. But the other part of it is, if you can do both the technical side and the talking to customers side, then you're gold dust to an employer.
100%. So actually, I didn't say, but my degree was computer science and business management. So when I had done it with that intention, because I'm if I can speak tech and speak business, I will be very employable. And it was interesting. I know we were discussing this before the podcast, but I had spoken with some of my colleagues who were all incredibly technical and awesome 50-year-old men, and they said, one of the most important things is, where was it? I'll find the slide. It was people, culture, process, and tools in that order. Because actually, a lot of my colleagues, very technical, the way they got into my job, I moved around a lot. They started in a grad scheme, and they were a software engineer, and they got really good. So then maybe they're a senior or maybe a principal. And then they might become a manager. And that's where you can have some problems, because you go from talking to your computer says yes or no, very structured, to having to deal with people. It's this person wants to get promoted, or I need more budget, or that demand is unreasonable. So actually, communication and people is actually so important in tech, which I don't think most people think about.
It's partly an academic thing. I think computer science tends to see the world the other way around. It's tools, then process, then culture, then people from the bottom up. Exactly.
Because part of my job is I work with enterprise organizations. So I work with all of the kind of the brands and the brand and companies that people know. And it literally is all about, you want to create secure software faster. Okay, great, that's the objective. Okay, so what's the culture like? What are your people like? How do you do that at the moment? And what you find is silos. You find bottlenecks. And actually, and if you want to change things, if you want to drive behavioral change, that's all about people. It's we're going to rip out this tool, and you're going to use GitLab. It's how do you drive adoption? So actually, the more I work in tech, the more it's about people. And I think if I was, if you were still a lone engineer doing your own startup and just doing tech all day, that's great. But at some point you will
even then you need to talk to investors.
Exactly. You need to talk to investors. You'll need to, hire the people. So it's interesting you said from the academic point you view it the other way, because in the world of business it's gone a bit of a loop.
Yeah, okay. Good. So, you're working in a cybersecurity company, and then you went from the cybersecurity to GitLab, or is there something in between
to another cybersecurity company. So I was working looking at dependencies.
Right.
So for example, if you're using Java and you want to use some open source like Log4j, you'll go to Maven Central. But unfortunately, sometimes those software packages can have vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
So doing the scanning, and also they can have different licenses. So that was that job. Then the next one I moved to was a company called Secure Code Warrior, and that was about training developers in security, because the backstory for that was the CEO was a penetration tester who got tired of seeing the same results all the time. So it's like, oh, let's go to the source. Let's train the developers so they don't introduce the vulnerabilities.
In the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And then after that, then at GitLab, which is a DevSecOps platform. So looking at development, source code management, continuous integration, the security, and also continuous deployment, operations, monitoring, etc.
So how long have you been at GitLab now? You've been
2 and a bit years.
Oh, 2 and a bit years. Okay, so well, let's backtrack a bit here. So people listening to this podcast should know what Git is and what GitHub is. But so Git is this distributed version control software, which lots of people have heard of. GitHub is an application that's built on top of that. Effectively, started in 2008 and bought by Microsoft about 10 years later in 2018. It had about 6,000 employees when it got bought by Microsoft. So it's now part of the Microsoft empire. GitLab is a different story. So you started in about 2011, we think. And today you have about 2,000 employees, and your focus is different to GitHub. So can you talk about what GitLab does?
Yeah, so I agree. It is a bit confusing, not only for you and all the listeners, but also for the people I speak to and people who aren't using us. It's a common confusion. So the way I explain it, and I like to really simplify things. So when I think of Git, I almost think of it as a file extension. So a bit like you have an MP3 or MP4, you have a .git, and that's how you're storing your source code. So it's just a way of storing code. Then you had two companies who started up around, within a few years of each other. You had GitHub and then GitLab. And they both did the same thing to begin with, which was the source code management, so looking after source code. And then what GitLab started to do was it started to branch out. So one of the decisions they made, I think it was about 2013, they had a continuous integration. So they had the pipelines and they had the source codes, and the co-founders were all talking amongst themselves like, oh, I think we should combine them, and the CEO was like, I don't think we should, but the other co-founder was like, we really should, and actually that was one of the best decisions. And the CEO talks about something I nearly missed out on combining it, because actually having one platform, so you have source code, CI, all the way up to deployment. Whilst with GitHub, they've focused more on the developer experience. So yes, it has the source code, and you can have other stuff like security plugins, and they have something called GitHub Actions, which is also for the pipelines. Yeah. But even when you see the in conferences, the kind of the banners, GitHub is a AI powered developer platform, whilst we are an AI powered DevSecOps platform.
Right. Okay. Good. So can you talk a little bit about what your role? I mean, I know you said a little bit about this already, but can you talk about, you touched on what GitLab is, so can you say a little bit about what your role within GitLab is, going out and talking to clients?
Yeah, so it's an interesting title, because sometimes a solutions architect is someone who literally just looks at architectures all day. Yeah. And that would be if I was working at a bank, for example. I probably would do that. Whilst I am a solutions architect at a vendor, so GitLab is a platform that people can buy. And so what I will do is I will speak to customers, whether it's at events or conferences. I do a lot of public speaking, but also people are like, oh, can I have a demo? I'd like to see GitLab. And then they're like, oh, I'd like to try GitLab. So we'll do a proof of value, and then they'll get a license, and then they'll be using GitLab. It's like, oh well, GitLab's a massive platform. What do you actually want to do? What problems are you trying to solve? And then I'll work with them. Oh, we found a problem, or how do you do this? So very kind of advisory kind of role. And then hopefully when they're very happy, the technical people are all happy, then I'll do my little thumbs up to my sales counterpart, and then they will talk with someone on the customer side about licensing, pricing, the contracting, whilst my focus is very solely on the technical. Some people call it pre-sales.
I was going to say pre-sales.
Yeah, it's pre-sales, but you can also have post-sales, and that's when that's after the purchase. Right. So yeah, it's really good because it's very customer facing. I get to do a lot of travel. I get to speak to a lot of different people, but it does require, you need to have some customer facing. But interestingly, most people in my team are introverts. So it's not a case of, oh, you need to be chatty and talk to people. No. Actually, introverts are very good at listening, and kind of they listen and they're like, have you considered this? Or what about this? So actually, being extroverted.
Complementary skills, right?
Yeah.
So, what was I going to say now? The other thing I was going to say is actually it's kind of it's a similar role to consultancy in that you're seeing. So if you take your example of a bank, if you're a solutions architect in a bank, you only ever see the inside of a bank. Okay, it's very big and there's lots of different parts to it, but you're just working for a bank. Whereas in your role and in consultancy roles as well, you're working. The kind of interest is you're not just working with different people. You're working different people in different organisations, so you get to see inside all these organisations and how they work and how they fit together.
So that's really interesting, and this in GitLab is bigger, so there's about 2,000 people, and I am focused mainly UK, but I do a bit of Nordics. In my last company, it was a Series B startup, and now about 120 people globally. Right. So I was the only SA for the whole of Europe, for enterprise and mid-market. So I not only covered the whole of Europe, so all of the different countries, but also all of the different levels. So I could be speaking to someone with 5,000 developers or speaking to someone with, with 50 developers. Although after about a year, I did tell my team, okay, I really need to focus on the 5,000 developer opportunities because, being efficient. But that's just really interesting because, one day I'm talking to a bank, then I'm talking to, like today, don't know if I should say, but I was talking to a very large car/defense company that I know very well. And that was another moment, I think it was during lockdown, I was doing a meeting and it was with, this was a few years ago, it was with Mercedes-Benz, and that's my favorite car. So I was like, oh wow, I'm speaking to Mercedes-Benz, this is so cool. And stuff I've been to the Lego office, I've been to the IKEA office. Right. So I get to know all the brands and hear their challenges, and it's interesting because everyone thinks that, oh, we're so cutting edge, but actually because of behavioral change and process and things take time, a lot of people are still on the journey to get where they need to be.
And I suppose the other sort of, I know you get this with lots of different roles in computer science, is you get to see your stuff being used by lots of people, and over time, once they adopt, once you've driven that behaviour change, you get to see your solution that you've architected being used by hundreds, thousands, more people, I guess. So it's kind of quite good job satisfaction, I guess, from that point of view.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well because especially at conferences, we usually, if GitLab has a slot, we'll usually try and take a customer with us and get them to talk about their journey. Right. So it's what was life like before GitLab? We had all these problems, there were silos, it was slow, it was horrible, and then this is how we adopted it, and this is what we use, and these are our results, and everything is awesome, and now we have some case studies. I think it's Goldman Sachs went from deploying once a month to 1,000 times a week.
Right.
Stuff like that. So there's some really cool statistics.
Continuous development, continuous integration point, I suppose, isn't it? Is that you shouldn't be releasing things once a month or even once a week. You can do it more often than that.
100%.
Okay, good. So I think have we covered everything we want to say about GitLab? I think we probably.
I think so. GitLab's awesome. Come find me for stickers. I'll leave some for you.
And I guess they have. I don't know too much. Do they have a kind of graduate scheme or an internship scheme?
I think so. I think they might have a. I think they do accept some interns or grads, but I know quite a few other companies that I've for example IKEA. They're hiring at intern and graduate level. Right. So find me on LinkedIn. I always know about some roles somewhere.
We'll put that note in the show notes. So the last few questions then we've got a bit of time left, but to talk about standard questions I ask all guests on the show. So the first one is I call it minority report. So you're not a member of a minority as being a woman because that's 50% of the population, but you're underrepresented in the tech industry as a whole. So could you say a little bit about your experience of how that's been as a student back in the day? Because I'm guessing the gender balance when you were here was probably less or similar to what it is now. And then also your journey from graduating to where you are now, what's been your experience of being a woman working in technology?
So when I was at in 2009, when I was in first year, and it did get better because I did see more young women in the halls, but about 300 people in first year Java, and I counted, and I was one of the 8 women. So
right.
it's just under 3%. So maybe some women were sick that day, but it was very low. But like I said, I did see it over the few years, get better. And I didn't really notice it too much, at university because I had a strong enough friendship group outside of uni, outside of computer science. I did have 2 of my best friends were women, so, found that 2 of us stuck together. And so I think in computer science at uni level, I didn't really see it as like an obstacle or a problem. I just remember, and this even still happens to this day. I got a message from a friend like 6 months ago. Someone will be like, oh, I study computer science at Manchester. And people will be like, oh, do you know Steph? And they're like, oh, that girl. So that used to happen a lot. I remembered running in late to a lab session. And I literally just burst in the door and like all the guys just looked up at me in shock. I was like, hi, sorry, just running a bit late. Run to my desk next to my other female friend. So I think I was more, but I think that's also, everyone is young then, everyone's 18. So that was an experience in itself. Then when I joined the world of work, I mentioned I worked in more kind of sales commercial roles, and the gender balance was better, but it was just very, very cutthroat. So my gender had nothing to do with it, but it was like, okay, you want my help? More than 5 minutes? You're cutting into my time. It wasn't that great an environment for that. And then when I started in the world of work, and this has happened to me twice in 2 different jobs, I joined the team call, like the first team call, Monday or the Friday, whenever it is, and I look around the Zoom, and I'm like, oh, I'm the only woman here. So that happened in my first ever place of employment. And I even remember we had a big company offsite of all the technical people, and I found one of the product owners. And then I was like, oh, I have a question. He's like, okay, we don't start till Monday, but okay. I'm like, are there any women on your team? Because I'm the only one on my team, and I've only joined like 3 months ago. And then he was like, well, yeah, no, we have Sue, did it? Yeah, we have 4.
Right.
And this was, obviously there were non-technical, like people in, marketing and HR, but amongst product engineering and solutions architecture, I think there were like 7 of us in total.
Right.
The next company I joined, I don't know how they did it. I think maybe, diverse founders. But I remember I was interviewing and I was on LinkedIn and I was sat next to my boyfriend who worked in tech. And then I was looking at the people in the London office, and he's like, did you just filter for women? I'm like, no, this is their London office. It's all women, and it's awesome. And I think that was at Secure Code Warrior because it was a training platform, and we were selling like a lot to HR, or, it was a training platform with technical content. The technical requirements weren't as high. So, there was more women than men.
Right.
And then I joined GitLab as the first woman, and I joined that team call, and I'm like, okay, great, I'm going to have an opinion about, like, I don't know, lawnmowers or sports or beer. But then thankfully, actually, since I've joined GitLab, I checked in a team call, I was, like, the first of 10 out of 10 people. And then now I checked, and it was like, I think it was like 7 out of 23 were women, including 2 of the 3 managers.
Right.
So, and that's improved in the course of 2.5 years. So definitely... I'm very aware of it, but I haven't seen it as too much of a hindrance because usually, at least, at uni and also in my jobs, people are like, oh, wow, you're a woman. Like, how's it going? Do you need any help? Whilst actually, when I was in sales and recruitment, it was like everyone was just wanting to get to the top, whilst in tech, people are a lot more collaborative.
Right, okay. So, I think the gender balance it sounds like the gender balance was very bad when you were here. It's got a bit better since, but it's still, I think it's somewhere between 15 and 20%. Mm-hmm. Which is still would put you in a minority if you're a woman. So what? Two questions are. So what could universities do to make computing and perhaps similar STEM subjects more welcoming to women? And then is there anything employers can do to make technology as a profession more welcoming to women?
So I think it's a lot to do with visibility. So I asked this question in my first job to the board member. I was like, hi, I've just founded women at my company. There's 4 of us. What advice would you give? And for perspective, this is someone from America who actually, dated Bill Gates for a while at uni, so, been in the industry for a long time, and what she said, which was quite impactful, was, visibility, like, keep doing what you're doing. So I do a lot of public speaking because a lot of my thing is like, hey, you don't have to look like you're from computer science to do computer science, because I think there is, like, quite a stereotype about you have to be this type of person with this type of brain. And actually what I've seen working well in the industry is when I go to developer conferences, it's actually about 25% women. I'm like in shock. I have to queue for the bathroom again. Like, this is ridiculous. But then what's disappointing is I do a lot of security and also in ops as well. It's a lot less. So I'm like, is there something that's drawing? Maybe it's the front end, the visual, that could be drawing more women at that end. And then also what I see, which is another depressing, is that the minute I'm talking to senior leadership, or if I'm talking at a conference and it's more managerial level, I showed a photo to my dad. He's like, oh yeah, they're all men, and they don't look that young because there are a lot of little kind of bald spots at the back. But yeah, in terms of what people can do better, I think it's, very much about visibility. So having kind of case studies or successful stories, or like, this is why I talk about my experience a lot, because I'm like, I did computer science because I thought it would make me successful, which I guess it kind of has, but I didn't know what I was doing, and I did want to drop out a lot, but I didn't. I stuck through it, and via customer facing side, I found something that works for me. So I think like I've seen, at schools, they're starting, I think it's now compulsory to start computing from when like GCSE or younger, which I think is great, at least in the UK. So I think that will start to open it up. But having what you're already doing with your podcast, having these success stories, I think that can definitely help. And then I've been a benefit and receiver of a lot of mentorship. So I'm always, if anyone on the podcast wants to reach out, I'm always happy to like have a call and then help out how I can.
Great. Okay, good. I think the sort of flip side to the visibility thing, I mean, I try and do what I can to make things more visible. Then the danger is that, and you've probably been on the receiving end of this, is then people are always, you're the go-to person when somebody wants to ask about, what it's like being a woman in tech, and you're being asked to do a lot more presenting than your male counterparts who sure, they'll do presenting, but perhaps not as much as you're being asked all the time, and you kind of have to learn to say, no, actually I can't, it's enough, it's, I've done my bit now.
So this is a real thing, and you see it around events like, say, if you have International Women's Day, or if you have events aimed at other underrepresented groups. And guess what? If we take, IWD, it's like, oh, guess what? It's the women that are organizing it. It's the women who are speaking. It's the women who are staying late. It's the, it's almost like, oh, you're a minority. Here's some extra work so that we can get more of you, So that is a real problem in the industry. What I'll say is I am here for free because I like University of Manchester. I charge for my time. So if people do want me for speaking, then I will, I expect them to pay me for my time because I'm, creating the slides. Might have to travel. So that's how I get around that. It's like supply demand. I'm okay, if I have a lot of demands, then it's just more, I've just made it more commercial.
Good. Right. And it sounds like it sounds to me like you GitLab are doing all the right things in this space, and that you're saying that it's, compared to previous companies you've worked, it's doing the right things.
So if we look at GitLab specifically, they have some really good policies for all people. There's no office anywhere, so we all work remote. So I really like that, and that was, that's been since like 2011. So it means that if you are, say if you're a carer for your family, whether it's younger generations or older generations, you can then work that into your schedule, because the second thing is we're a big believer in asynchronous work. So it's not a case of you're expected to be at your laptop 9 to 5 with the little Slack or Teams emoji, on. It's like, okay, everyone is a manager of themselves, and you need to, work with other people, but you just, are very clear, like, okay, I'm just popping out to, get kids from school, I'll be back later. Or, okay, I'm going to get all this work done, I'll have it done by Wednesday midnight, because on, Tuesday morning I'm traveling and then I have some meetings. Right. Yeah. So because of that flexibility, it means that a lot more of the workforce are able to be involved, because, if you do have family commitments, we've cut it down slightly. It used to be 1 day a month called Family and Friends Day. The whole company would shut down. Now it's 1 day a quarter, which is still only 4 days off. And that's the other one, unlimited holiday. Right. So having like all these policies in place has really helped, because I think I know there's been a lot of mandates like all over the world, but forcing people to go back to the office, it does tend to make it more of a struggle for women, because they usually have more of the family responsibilities. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of remote work for that reason.
Okay, that's good. Good to hear. So, that I think is there anything else we want to say about being a woman in computing? I think we've covered.
I think we've covered a lot of it, but it's. I'll talk about. I can't go into too much detail because I don't know about the other experience. But for example, I have enough friends that I know that I benefit from being a white woman. And actually, that women, as well as, there's obviously gender, there's the ethnicity. And as a white woman, I'm treated differently than other women because I've spoken to, there's a senior director in my company, and we were talking, and she was like, yeah, no, I get, we're going to do cliches, but, she gets man-interrupted a lot. Or people will talk over her, or people won't listen to her. I don't have that problem as well because of the type of personality I have. But then on the flip side, what I have had is I've had clients stare at different parts of my body, and I'm like, how is this acceptable? So yeah, there are things you can do, and especially as a man, being an ally and just listening to this. Or for example, if you notice that some woman is constantly being interrupted or spoken over, be like, oh, actually, I'd love to hear what Reshmi has to say, or what Stefania has to say. Or if you observe problematic behavior, then call it out for what it is, because yeah, my experience hasn't been too bad, but I can only speak from my lens and what I hear.
Okay, good. All right, so the next thing is then something a bit personal to say. I ask all the guests to recommend us one tune, one podcast, one book, and one film that they recommend our listeners go and read, watch, listen to. So let's start with, is there one piece of music that you recommend listeners listen to, and why is that piece of music important to you?
That's such a hard, you prepped me for these questions before. It is so hard, but there was a song that I discovered, I think it was last year, the year before, 2022's most listened to song on my Spotify, because it's called, I listened to it at the beginning of February, and it was like the first sunny day, and I was going for like a morning, I think it was a pandemic walk, and it's called Summer Came My Way. I can't remember who it's by. It's by Greg someone, or I can't remember.
We'll dig that out. I'll find out, I'm sure. Okay.
But it just was like what I needed to hear. And then sometimes I listen to it when I'm just feeling low, because I'm like, it's okay, summer's coming. Summer came my way. So that's one of my go-tos.
Okay, and I don't know if you listen to podcasts at all, or radio at all?
I don't really listen to podcasts, but I know that one of my favourite... because for the book, I kind of got two, but one of my favourite books, he does a podcast.
Right.
So I could maybe combine.
Yeah.
And he's also got a Netflix TV series too. But I watched earlier this year, there was a guy called Ramit Sethi, and he's done a New York bestseller Times book, and it's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich, but the Netflix series was How to Live Your Rich Life. And as someone who never really knew what to do with savings and money and investment, and also, how am I on my credit card the whole time, and I had quite poor financial psychology. He does a podcast, and also with his book, all of a sudden, I've made really different financial decisions, because it's all about conscious spending. It's like, okay, if you want to, go to a 5-star hotel, great, go for it, but make sure you can afford it. And actually, if you want a holiday in 5 stars, maybe you have a smaller apartment or take public transport. So that literal book changed my life. I only read it last year, but all of a sudden, it's like even my parents, I had my own apartment in London. I traveled for 6 months a year with work and on holiday and surfing. And all of a sudden, I've moved in with my parents. I don't live by myself because I travel 6 months a year. Do I need to live by myself? And then because of that, I have money for a deposit now. And it's like, wow. And then that's going to become a buy-to-let. And then that will get me closer to retiring so that I can spend more time and energy with my family and friends rather than the corporate grind.
Right.
So that's been a game changer. I nearly put it in my talk, actually. I was like, this is a tech talk, but here's some financial advice.
Okay, good stuff. So that's the podcast and the book.
And the book.
Right. Okay. And what was the author's name? You said?
Ramit Sethi.
Ramit Sethi. Okay, we'll make a note of that.
Yeah.
And then the last one then is one film.
Yes.
One film you'd recommend.
Oh,
could be something recent, could be something ancient.
I know. What? I did see a film the other day, and I was like, this is so good. Okay, so I quite I say children films, like Pixar, Pixar, DreamWorks, those kind of things. And I saw it, I was in Las Vegas with work a few months ago, so it's on the American Netflix, but not on our one. But the latest Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, is actually really good because it deals with a lot of different concepts like, mortality, prioritization. It has other things in it like, orphan stories, privilege, death. So it's actually really good. And because it's taken on board a lot of the like more anime style graphics, it's actually really cool. Right. So that was like a sleeper hit. I actually was really impressed.
Right. Okay. Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots, The Last Wish.
Okay, The Last Wish, great. And then the last question to wrap up then is a colleague of mine in the physics department has invented a time travel machine which she has lent us. And if you could step into that time machine, travel back to meet yourself as a first year undergraduate, I know this is part of the subtitle of your talk today, what advice would you offer a younger Stefania? What did you wish you'd known then that you know now?
God, I get asked this question a lot, and especially since reading that book I mentioned, I think if younger me saw the me of a few years ago, like, yeah, you're traveling and you live by yourself, life is awesome. I think if like younger me met me of like this year, I'd be like, what happened to you? So what I would say to that younger person is like, really, this book came out a few years ago, read it younger. I'd probably say invest 10% of your income no matter what, then you'll be fine. That would probably be the first. And I'd be like, what's investment? I don't know what that means. So that's the disclaimer. But if specifically first year, because that's when I was like, why am I here? I don't understand what's going on. And everyone else seems to know everything. And I'm still stuck on if-else loops and stuff like that. So it would probably be, I would tell myself that I can get through this and that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And actually to, whatever, the world is your oyster in terms of once you can articulate what you want, and then you can, I say, manifest, which I come from, the yogi school of thinking and also the business management school of thinking. Everyone talks about manifesting your goals because once you know what you want, that's the what, then you can figure out the tactical, the how, the implementation. You can get yourself to where you want. You are the only thing, you are your own mental barrier. You create these like stories of no, and actually a lot of the stuff is in your head. And actually if you just focus on what you want and how to get there, then you're going to be okay. Which I've learnt through trial and error in my 20s and 30s.
So I guess kind of part of that would have been then knowing that, for example, maybe one of the reasons that you struggled at university was because you're thinking, I'm going to be a software developer. And if I'm going to be a software developer, I'm going to have to be really good at this second year C module. Yeah. And I'm struggling with that a bit, so therefore I'm in all sorts of trouble. But had you known then, actually, and I think I see this in quite a lot of students, they assume that software developer is the only role or the main role. There are lots of other roles around software development that require you to have some of that technical skill so that you can talk to developers, but then also have some of the communication skills you talked about and being able to work with people as well. So
exactly, there's so many different types of jobs out there. Somewhere where if I'm talking about women, somewhere I see a lot of women being successful is actually a product manager, because you're listening to the customers, you're designing the product, and then you tell the developers, okay, we're going to need this feature or we need this button here. So you're not necessarily, typing the commands, but you just need to have an understanding of, what is possible and what is not. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting space to be.
Good. Okay. I think that's a good note to finish on. So thank you, Stefania, for coming on the show. And yeah, thanks again. Yeah,
thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. And yeah, if anyone who's listening wants to reach out, I'll leave my contact details because I'm always about helping the next generation. So yeah, thank you for having me, and I'll leave Duncan with some GitLab stickers. So.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Hearing Your Future, the Coding Your Future podcast. You can find out more about this episode and all the other episodes, including full transcripts and show notes, at cdyf.me. That's Charlie, Delta, Yankee, Foxtrot, Mike, Echo. You can also find us on all the major podcast platforms by searching for Coding Your Future or Hearing Your Future, so that you can subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you found something useful to help you start coding your future today.